of those duos of Lucian Milio or Yunara Lulu is going to be able to get through, and those are kind of the main ones that NIP have felt comfortable piloting. It's going to be the Nocturne taken off the board, especially with Xin Zhao and Jarvan gone, raises the value of Vi, Pantheon, Nocturne, all of them now unavailable. So a lot of the free engagers out of the jungle are not on the table, and that means that priority is going to be very different. Notably, Orianna has been left up, and I presume that will be the first pick here for NIP.
Yep. Kael will take, I guess, whatever bait AL have left out here by not selecting that one, or maybe being willing to give a Z-tier champion to a player that they hold to a lesser degree for NIP success. Something along those lines, right? Bottom line is Orianna does end up going on over here towards Kael. Shanks, pondering encounters, and Kman is not a fan of the Shuriman Emperor if this one gets locked in here.
I mean, we'll see. We've seen a lot of teams take Azir into Orianna. It's been a common counter pick, but they're going to pivot. They're going for the Lucian. They're like, we don't want to give that to Assum. If we're leaving it up, we certainly have to take it away ourselves. Hope does have a Lucian game this split. Didn't really go all that good.
Nope, it did not.
We'll see if they want to lock in the Milio here. That's obviously the main support that you've seen it with. Nami is also playable, but I think people generally like to play other things right now with it. They're hovering it again, just to taunt me right now. If they do end up locking it in, I will be going on my Azir rant, at least a little bit here, or the specific Azir into Orianna rant. But it will be that Milio locked in for a strong bot lane. Yunara Lulu makes the most amount of sense here.
Interesting, because I want to entertain the conversation of if Assum and Zhuo feel like they could slam, they can go Corki Nami, but they'll go for the scaling. All right, Kman, do your thing, man. I saw it. You can go ahead, man.
I need to express where Azir is actually at right now, because the damage out of Azir, it's really not as good as people think it is. Like, I think this champion is playable. The big problem I have with specifically people picking it into Orianna is you can literally pick any point in the game. Any point. Early, mid, late, any minute. There is never a point in the game where Azir is stronger than Orianna. Like, there is no point, at no item break point, where you are stronger than Orianna. And I just think that it becomes a lot more difficult. Essentially, you are opting in as Shanks to just be an engager with the ultimate in this game. And I think that that's fair, but if you're trying to outdamage this Orianna on the other side, it's going to be really difficult. Ryze is up and available. I think that is the easy answer for me in terms of something in the mid lane, but they wanted to go for the Azir, and Shanks will have to showcase that he can find those ultimates.
Here's my next question, K-Man. What the hell are these junglers going to play, man? We're losing Nefiri, Nocturne, Pantheon's out of the gate here. So what champions are coming to your mind, right? I'm thinking like Skarner's still up and floating around here that a lot of teams like. What else are you seeing?
Skarner makes a lot of sense. I think specifically Poppy could be something that you could pick up if you're going into Lucian and Azir. I think that is certainly something that you would be, a little bit more comfortable kind of bringing into this matchup. Mundo is also still on the board, something that these players have been pretty proficient in, but the Skarner is now banned out. AL's pool is very pinched. The only champion left up that Tarzan has played is that Poppy. Outside of that, Lee Sin could be on the table. I mean, that's another thing that we're seeing kind of rise in popularity, but the Scion is going to be locked in here for Flandre. They're going to be playing for that bottom side of the map.
Man, what a chess match this would be if we see Tarzan come through with this B5 final pick Lee Sin. Because it'd be like, hey, and I'm here to sit there over there like, okay, man, they're like, you guys just ripped our draft. You're playing our draft against us. Guwon, of course, gets a Lee Sin win in NIP's last series, a series that both Assum and Zhuo played this Lucian Milio to get that series win as well. Love this pick for Hoya, though. Puts him in a pretty big spot. Gets the Gwen into the Scion.
I actually think specifically in this team matchup, I really like the idea of putting Hoya in a spot where he can win early. Hoya's actually been pretty good for this team throughout this year in terms of his ability to play the early game and, generate leads. He's been known for things like the Varus top and the counter picks and the Vayne that he's been able to showcase. And I think Gwen kind of fits into this carry category, but it's going to be the Trundle locked in as the answer here going into the Scion. This Trundle is a massive issue, actually, now that I look at it for AL. This is going to be a pretty big problem with an Orianna ball on top of it to set up for a Yunara potentially carrying a Gwen diving the backline. I love this draft for Ninjas in Pyjamas.
But AL, they are trying to find ways to slow down what is now very clearly a super scaling comp across the board here for NIP. Okay. And it's going to be Tarzan feeling himself with the Kiana lock-in. Does it play well into a lot of NIP? Maybe not, especially with the Lulu. Do I like it knowing how well Tarzan played in Game 1? Certainly yes.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Give him something that he can carry on. I am a little concerned because it's Qiyana Azir in this mid-jungle duo, which really isn't going to have a ton of tempo in the early game unless Qiyana starts snowballing out of control. You can have a level 1, maybe like you did in game number 1, but scaling is firmly on the side of NIP. I mean, you are not staring down a 5v5 that you can win in the late game if you're AL. This is a game that they kind of forced themselves to be able to win early. They did that in game 1, so perhaps they feel comfortable doing it in game 2, but NIP have so many different outs. As long as they play relatively stable in this game, I would definitely feel like they feel pretty confident coming out of draft.
Is there any decreased confidence in Kael's Orianna this game with no like true ball delivery system? Like it's gonna have to take a little more skill for Orianna to find these big shockwaves. Does that hamper your take at all?
I think the thing about Orianna that makes her so broken, in my opinion, that makes her like so objectively the best champion in the game is like, let's say you hit 1 or 2 good shockwaves, the value from the shields and just generally the value from Orianna is already so much more than what most other mid laners can offer that like the shockwave is kind of a bonus on top of everything, like the CC that she offers. She's already so good in her kit that, you know, it can really be utilized in a bunch of different ways. We saw previously, you know, in the last series for NIP, I believe it was Kael who got the Orianna, didn't get a single kill. The Azir on the other side of that matchup got 5 kills and was up 2,000 gold. Orianna did 5,000 more damage in that game. So hopefully that doesn't end up being the case here.
You know what I hope it isn't the case? No level 1s. Let me hear my Gyos. Game 2 on the Rift. Kman, we have a full-blown invasion on our hands. The AL fans have taken over NIP's home arena. Those Chayos from the AL fans were loud, but the whole arena was loud as a whole, and that's just awesome to hear as we're in the midst of our split 2 here in the LPL.
It's really cool to see that AL fans are still on board after the tough start. I know it's been a bit of a tough time for anyone's legend to start off the spring split, even closing out split number 1, right? This was a team that was expected to do a lot better. They were the number 1 seed and got 4th place, but faith has not wavered amongst the fan base, and they're in a good spot to be able to take this series after the win in game 1. Question is, what are they going to do here in game 2? Opposite side starts here for the 2 junglers, which means we're not going to have the same kind of shenanigans we had in game number 1. Summoners are still available, and that's already an improvement for the bot lane.
Yep, the barrier out there for Mr. Awesome, as this is definitely the most intriguing matchup outside of the top lane Hoya experience into Flandre, as you mentioned. Does well with those early leads, but this is Hope and Kael picking a 2v2 that needs to slam lane after they just got bodied by this very 2v2 a game ago. So something very interesting to watch out for, because you need, no matter what Hope and Kael were playing as well, Kman, whenever you're into Yunara Lulu, you have to find a way to slow these guys down in lane, or they will scale out of oblivion into the later stages.
Absolutely. I mean, it gets really, really difficult for AL to be able to fight in the later part of the game. Lucian already has trouble being able to find his way into these exchanges with his lack of range, and Milio helps that a little bit, but I mean, this late game is not super easy at all for anyone's legends. It's not just the fact that Lucian is going to have to go into something like Yunara Lulu. It's that this Sion is going to have the tank stats drained. Oh, Shanks. Oh, he survives just barely in the mid lane.
I know you love Azir in this matchup. I'm surprised that Shanks is getting bodied so early.
Oh, you know, who could possibly have seen that coming? Probably know with the trade here.
Okay, yeah. The Polymore's already down here. Hope gets another dash reset. Zhuo. Yeah, he's going to have to flash on out of there. So Hope and Kael able to battle back some. That's 2 early flashes off of NIP members, despite the fact that Shanks does get pushed out of lane. We'll see if Tarzan can look to punish that as he wraps up his first clear through the jungle.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going as expected so far. The Lucian is there to be able to put pressure down into this laning phase. You need to utilize the power of Lucian Milio, and one thing that I think goes under the radar, Lucian is definitely a champion that's gained some criticism over the course of this year, but Lucian is a very, very good champion in lane, arguably the best champion in the isolated 2v2 right now in terms of where his strength lies. It's why he's come back into the meta so efficiently for a lot of these LPL teams. If you can utilize that advantage, it should still be fine, but we're already seeing the fruits of Kael's labor in the mid lane here with that Orianna getting a small lead.
Yep. Hope going to return to a pretty decent lane state in the bottom side, though, as well. As our junglers are on through their second clears. Maybe a bit quieter of a jungle early game. Both Qiyana and Trundle definitely kind of want to farm their fair share of camps before they look to try and make anything happen. And also 2 champions with a lot less reliable gank setup than the Xin Zhao J4 we are much more accustomed to.
Definitely a very different game. I think Engage is still very much the priority here for anyone's Legend in particular. It's kind of why you draft the Azir, is because you have the Flandre and the Azir to be able to, or you have the Scion for Flandre, not the Flandre, but you have Flandre being able to find his way with the ultimates onto potentially the front line to set up for Azir to be able to play more aggressive. I think NIP are going to have to be a bit more careful with the way that they play this game. They obviously have plenty of tools to be able to fight, but generally I think it's going to rely on them being a little bit more topside focused around Hoya and around this Gwen, who I'm going to be keeping my eyes on in the mid game here.
Yeah, Kman, good call. I mean, Yunara, Trundle, Gwen, they're all about, I need to run at opponents and feast while they try and run away from me. But if you don't respect the CC that a Scion's Decimating Smash, you know, an Emperor's Divide brings, even the Supreme Display of Talent, those, you know, Ooga Booga run forward champions can look pretty silly. So we'll have to see if AL can utilize that advantage to try and get an early lead that they don't look back from. We're still on pretty even footing here, but the Dragon has been started. This is part of the power of Trundle. Just slams these early objectives, but Tarzan's looking to answer on the top side here. Hoya gonna get jumped on.
Well
Flash,
played.
Decimating Smash, Unstoppable Onslaught combo. Hoya gonna flash, they'll get a pretty good needlework, and Tarzan doesn't have enough in the tank to finish off that kill. Big win for NIP. Hoya survives the gank.
That is massive for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Them being able to not give over First Blood while still getting Dragon is best case scenario. Let's remind you, this team wants to try and avoid as many fights as they can in the beginning of this game because of how comfortable they feel in terms of the scaling. Being able to start that process by getting that Mountain Dragon early, that's already a good amount of stats. Like, Mountain is one of the better Drakes, I think, isolated to be able to pick up early on in the game. And for Hoya to be able to survive there, it's best case scenario.
And a win con that AL will have to answer early and often. That leans into that NIP setup. Tarzan, though, right back out onto his clear here. We do have Grub still about two and a half minutes out. So not much more for Tarzan Company to play out here. Tarzan will finally tick over to level 6 with a Supreme Display of Talent. But his entire bottom side of the map is lit up with red wards, so Shanks got to be the playmaking. What a great style ultimate combo from Shanks and Tarzan. Throw the soldiers up, slam the Orianna into him, and you've got a kill on the board for AL.
It's beautifully timed there by AL because look at Kael's flash. It's just about to come back up from that aggressive play he made a little bit earlier, so they perfectly capitalize on the fact that he has no way to get out of there. Kael had plenty of chances to dodge that gank. Tarzan was on vision the entire time that that play was happening, but he felt like he wasn't in danger, and fortunately for him, he was incorrect. That is a big swing over to Shanks and specifically over to Tarzan, who we know is going to be able to dominate the Rift if he can get that lead.
Already looking to find that first item completed after a full clear through of camps. We'll see if he can maybe even find that before these grubs spawn, as we're under a minute towards the grubs coming back online. But despite not having ultimate, Shanks is now also feeling a bit more confident with these trades as he has completed some components towards that Nashor's Tooth. So AL really folding into this mid-jungle, being the focal point of the early game charge out so far. Tarzan will get slowed down a bit, though. Guwon looking to steal some camps away, and there is that ult advantage still for Guwon, but he doesn't find the blue buff up just yet, and he'll have to retreat back, likely to look for the grubs, but he's going to try and just invade onto Tarzan, who luckily finishes off his wolf camp just in time. Part of the pressure for Guwon is this top side play from Hoya. Full needlework combo into Flandre. Tons of damage.
Oh, no.
Flandre down, very low HP. He's going to cut the wave, though. Shockwave put on top of him, and he gets caught, and Hoya will find that kill. Some really nice ultimate ingenuity.
Oh, no.
Early game. Oh, Flandre finds the trade. Zombified is Hoya.
Yeah, still an okay trade, all things considered, but Shanks is going to be able to get this plate mid. We'll see if he's punished for it here by Guwon.
Guwon, that pillar is what's going to make this play work here. He gets the slow with the chomp. Shanks has flash, has a dash up. He's going to flash towards the wall, then dash over the pillar. Wasn't in time, but nice walk there from Guwon. It's now Shanks that's going to have to be careful without flash.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least good to get the flash out of the Azir, but you would have liked a little bit more on that play because Tarzan is going to get grubs. This is pretty massive just to avoid grubs going on to Ninjas in Pyjamas. It's kind of underrated how good NIP are going to be in a side lane in this game. It's going to be very hard to stop Gwen and Trundle and even Orianna from consistently being able to push into these, you know, weaker side laners, we'll be honest, with anyone's Legend who probably want to group up a little bit more consistently. So I think being able to secure those 3 grubs if you are AL is a massive advantage.
Now they're up to about a 1.5k gold lead, thanks to Flandre being able to salvage his death in the top side here. And who is going to end up being the real winner of that? Should be Tarzan. We'll see once he can get this first item completed. Talk to me, you know, maybe a bit, Kman, about how this Qiyana build path really sets the snowball forward on this champion in particular.
I mean, really, with Qiyana, it's all just about making sure... Oh, hold on. As we get a little bit of a trade on the bottom side, want to make sure that this Qiyana isn't going to be relevant in just a second. But for Qiyana, it's about snowballing this game and getting those items quickly. Boy. This could do it.
Assum transforms. He transcends, but I don't think he saw Tarzan. He's still hammering onto the wave. Tarzan channeling the back, maybe trying to fake them out. Hopes to progress the trade. Assum dashes forward. The wild growth comes across. He does flash out. Tarzan looking to hunt forward. Still holding on that Spruce talent. Hope going after Assum. The barrier comes up. What a polymorph from Zhuo as well. Hope far too forward. The Spruce talent does come down from Tarzan, but it's onto the wrong target. Not enough burst. We flash towards the top side where Flandre is once again getting dove here. Guwon holding on to the aggro, but Flandre's health bar stands tall. Two plays on opposite sides of the map. Neither work out in kills.
Yeah, but one of these plays is definitely going to benefit the team more than the other as Hoya continues to try to get plates onto the top side here. Yeah, he's got to be a little bit careful here as Flandre.
Hoya's going to flash forward and find the last snip of the scissors. And this time he will not be chased down by the zombified version of Flandre. Hoya breaks the deadlock that we had in those last minute.
Yeah, at least they're able to pick up a kill because that was a significantly worse trade for NIP for a majority of it. Hoya is in a good spot to be able to carry, and we highlighted that Hoya has actually probably been a bit more aggressive this split than someone like Flandre has on the other side in terms of the way that they function in the mid to late game. When you're looking at this comp and why it feels so scary for NIP is one of the things you fear the most is Gwen being able to find your backline if the Scion is getting, you know, Trundle ulted and not able to kind of keep that Gwen off of a lot of the main carries. And with that Orianna ball could still be a problem. Dragon will help with that.
I think you're too late. The polymorph is once again so great from Zhuo. Tarzan's gonna jump onto Assum, who doesn't have the wild growth or the transcend. Tarzan flashed out of the pit. He will get to safety, and now Shanks gets to reap the rewards with the short sand soldiers chopping down multiple members of NIP. Tarzan does die to care, but trades two for his own life.
Again, it's just so poorly timed for NIP. They're in an almost nearly perfect position to be able to take the dragon, but Kael doesn't have ult. Like, it comes up right now as this fight is ending. If you have Shockwave in that fight, I think it's completely different, but fortunately, it's just not the case. There's the Shockwave. It actually does quite a bit of damage. Shanks has to be a little bit careful here, but overall, it's a play that, once again, is going in favor of AL because their timers have been perfect this game and their playmaking instincts have been right on the money.
And even this lead for Hoya in the top side as he's taking a nice trade into Flandre. All right, there's the top lane ultimate chicken we know well. Stop Onslaught traded for the needlework. Flandre's up a wave of CS. I know Hoya will scale, but it's only a 200 gold deficit for the top lane. It's not that big of a deal. Not as big of a deal as Tarzan's heroics to set Shanks up here for the multi-kill.
Yeah, Tarzan does as much as he possibly can to this AD carry and flashes out of the wall to try and get himself to safety, but Kael has to commit so much to killing Tarzan when the moment he gets in from the teleport, they are all clumped up. If, again, look at the bottom of your screen. It was up in 2 seconds. If they have Shockwave, I think that fight goes entirely different, but again, unfortunately, that's not the case, and Tarzan's been able to generate a lead because of it. Again, a 2,000 gold lead for the player that, you know, ended up really carrying game number 1. He's on a champion that can cause even more havoc in game number 2. Tarzan is looking fantastic through the first couple of games of the series.
The more Tarzan garners this lead, the more I want to keep my eye on Zhuo. Few champions are able to kind of stymie the power of a snowballing assassin like Lulu, the polymorph, the wild growth, everything kind of just anti-assassin. So Zhuo, a player that we have credited a lot for the success of NIP in Split 2, but is also a huge reason why in the Split 1 Knights tournament, they even got into Group Ascend. It was Zhuo's play, so this Lulu needs to provide constant value up against the 1.5k gold lead. Qiyana staring down NIP on the other side.
I mean, isn't that the terrifying thing if you're Tarzan, is you can get this giant gold lead and then immediately get polymorphed in a fight, and it's just all for nothing.
And deleted.
So, yeah, you have to be really scared here on potentially trying to assassinate people into Lulu, especially with Orianna shield on top of that. You know, Trundle potentially causing some problems as well. This game is certainly not over for AL, despite the 3,000 gold lead in their pocket right now. They need to keep their foot on the gas. I think notably for NIP, they're stacking dragons. They're in a spot where if they can get this soul point on Ocean Dragon, you are going to start to get a bit concerned because that healing over time on the Ocean Dragon is actually going to be a pretty big boon towards this NIP comp if they can get into those 5v5s.
Yeah, third dragon really feels like our next canon event of this game, unless it's just the 80 carries looking to trade here. Hope a nice culling is going to chunk Assum down about half HP. Hope even going to take a plate off of that turret. I will say we got, Hope has been under a lot of constant scrutiny for his play, especially so far in Split 2. We were worried about him playing the aggro 2v2 Lucian lane. He's got 2 kills. He's up 1,500 gold. Definitely has delivered so far with this pick.
Look, I don't want to say he better be, but, like, this is what you pick Lucian for, right? Like, this is exactly the situation you want to find yourself in. If you're 1.5k gold up, you're doing your job on Lucian Milio, and anything less would be a bit of a problem for this team, but we've seen people carry on this Lucian. As much as I want to talk about him not being a big late-game threat in the same way Yunara is, that's really only because he's much more exploitable in a couple of these fights. If you can get into good positions on Lucian, he will shred you up, so you got to keep an eye on Hope here as we continue to watch these fights.
And to that point, this is a low-range comp from NIP, mostly across the board, so Lucian's not going to deal with as many of those conventional problems like you talked about that Lucian can run into the later stages. Still builds scaling, disgusting damage items like the Yunara. So Hope in the right position, Tarzan as expected in a premier position as well. AL's positioning now dictated towards the Herald, and with Tarzan, Hope, and Shanks, all the damage dealers pushed up into one area. They get rid of Shelly pretty quickly and secure the Herald. All the topside objectives going towards AL in this early game.
Yeah, I like NIP not pushing their, luck too much by trying to fight over a Herald that isn't really going to get all that much on the map unless, things go a little bit different. It'll probably be that mid lane tier 1 that ends up being the focus in about 15 seconds with Ocean Dragon spawning. Again, this is sole point right now for NIP. Them being able to get into position for this is paramount, and this might be a fight that they kind of have to win.
Are AL willing to take it? I would hope so. They're going to bring down the Herald early. Should be able to get the crash into the mid-tier 1 here with the wave thinned out. Nobody going to hop in to drive it. They're just going to knock down the structure with the power of Shelly herself. So down goes the tier 1 mid-turret. And what does that really gain for AL? Inside track towards the Dragon, the vision line as well. They can let Hope try and start poking some damage. Guwon takes a decent chunk here, but now he's trying to run down Hope. The flash shockwave hits on a 2, but Kael flashes Breath of Life all of AL out, and the Shuriman shuffle from Shanks knocks Hoya away from all of AL. There is no jungler up for NIP. There is very little reason for them ever to stay unless they think they can win the 4v5 fight. But as more time ticks, the Dragon gets lower. NIP seemingly make up their mind and bail out on an early soul point here.
I love that aggressive engage there by NIP, but Hoya is just a little late on finding the backline. If that synced up a bit more, again, perhaps things go a little bit different, but that gold lead that they've surrendered over, it's just too much right now. They don't have the resources to continue to push, and that means that AL have taken away a big resource. Kael is in trouble.
There's just no reason to be trying to contest this Gromp, knowing Shanks and Tarzan are both there. Shanks going to lose access to that flash. Excuse me, Shake's going to wail on this tier 1 turret. He may actually have to, he doesn't have a flash to rely on here. He's just going to get run down by Guwon. Tarzan going to jump onto Guwon, swinging the club, but there's a no kill to be found. Tarzan's burst is enough. NIP starting to find some desperation reeking out into their game plan.
I mean, this team looks very, very mental boomed right now, and they're going to have to try and overcome that because this was honestly an okay find. It looked like this was going to be a good start. As I said before, you take that Rift Herald so you can crash it into the mid-turret to get positioning here, but I love this engage. Guwon ends up finding multiple members with the Shockwave, notably the Azir, who you should be really focusing in this fight, but the Milio is clutch. Kael does a great job of being able to cleanse that CC, and like I said, Hoya just a little late on the flank to be able to find Hope and kind of shut down that culling, so the damage already comes through, and at that point, if AL is going to be free to hit on the backline, they're going to be able to do more damage with the gold lead that they generated. 5,000 in their pocket ahead of NIP right now. So much of that on Kiana and Lucian, 2 functional assassins in this game. And two
of the champions in this competition for AL that needed the gold early to finish this game off before we have to fear a 4-item Gwen, a 3-item Gwen, 4-item Yunara. All of these scale threats the AL have locked in the back of their minds. But the world is their oyster right now. We're about a minute and a half out from Baron. They don't have to worry about being dragged over towards the bot side of the map for an Ocean Soul early. Instead, they can play their game, and play their game through Tarzan, who's going to look to threaten any side lane solo left out to dry.
At this point, you just have to hope that AL make a mistake. There still is a pathway back into this game for NIP, but it's going to require AL doing something they probably shouldn't.
Can't back
Well,
there.
you should be fine on the top side, but one thing I want to draw your eyes to,
Flandre, how about Flandre? He's just going to run down Assum and blow him up with an unstoppable onslaught. Zhuo also has to flash his Flandre wanted more there. Power. We talked about the power of an Ashe hold out of Fog from game 1. How about a Sion hold out of Fog there, Kman?
I mean, I'd love to give Flandre a ton of credit. I think Assum dies there regardless of if the Sion shows up. I mean, he was 0 health getting ulted by the Lulu. Just, again, greedy plays, like desperation plays from an NIP team that we talked about being so good in the early game. They're so comfortable at playing with leads. Their backs are up against the wall against this AL team, and right now it doesn't look like they know what to do.
And you know, Kman, I'm kind of happy to say it. I do love the NIP story, but I like the league when it's at its most competitive. And the way this mid game has gone from AL and all the macro plays they've made on the map, this feels like the AL has split one.
Yeah, I mean, we can see here, like, Sion shows up, and that's all well and good, but that fight's already over. Hope is absolutely shredding this Yunara, even through the Lulu ultimate at this point. That's what happens when you give a 2,000 gold lead over. Serpent's Fang now completed for him as well. Full item up onto Assum. Hope has been much better here in this second game than he was in game number 1. He still was very valuable with those Ashe ultimates, but now he can really make a difference in terms of the damage he's outputting, and this team has desperately needed Hope to be a primary carry for them in some of these games. He's got a lot on his plate here, but he is very much living up to the billing in game 2.
He's got all the support that he'd ever need. Tanky Sion on the front line. 2 items done on that champion. Interesting to see the Zeeks played on the Sion. I feel like we don't see that too often, actually.
You know, it's starting to rise in popularity, especially in some of the other regions right now, but it's definitely interesting this game in particular. I think it's pretty valuable because, again, you're staring down a Trundle on the other side, but speaking of value, Baron is high value right now. Trundle's going to be making his way up, but looks like it started for AL.
Yeah, they are fully on a ward. Almost the Baron health being shown. And NIP, they know this is going down. They're going to have to walk their way in, but Hope is the one playing Border Patrol towards the front side of this top river. He's really dashing all around NIP, and he's stalled long enough. AL do get the Baron. Hoya on the backside isn't going to get access to Hope. He flashes out. Kael also having to flash away. Flandre's just going to sacrifice his health bar to make sure AL can get out of dodge with most of these Barons. But they're hunting for Shanks, who's on the wrong side of the pit, trying to play the vision. Maybe look for Tarzan. My God, Tarzan! You just briefly play talent. The shockwave comes down to straight 1, but now Shanks is caught in a good position. Dashes on top to find a second kill onto Guwon. This mid jungle for AL, man, they're looking feisty in game 2.
Tarzan is the king of the jungle right now. He is absolutely obliterating ninjas in pajamas. That looks like a terrible fight for AL, where they do get the Baron, but at the end of the day, they're going to lose so much because of it. But at the end of the, like, if you're gonna be able to Kiana ultimate right into the back lane and solo both of the bot lane members, yeah, that fight is gonna turn on its head. We're gonna get a replay of exactly what happened here. Tarzan's just over the wall. He's just waiting in the brush. He sees Assum and Zhuo. He says, yeah, thanks. I'll take that ult. I'll take that kill. Both of you are gonna be going down. And even though he has to trade his life, Shanks is able to make it worthwhile, essentially just trading 3 for 1 on that individual exchange. It goes from a play that looks kind of bad for AL in terms of the lead they had to one that is overwhelmingly in their favor.
Now they can start the Baron siege, Kman. It may be only 3 Barons strong, but that's all they need to look for this tier 2 on the bot side. Hoya is looking to trade some valuable gold back himself. He will be able to wail on that top lane tier 2 himself. The Colin coming down here from Hope, though. Oh my God. All right, Care has to proto belt dash to get some safety out. That will secure that turret. Flandre is on protection duty here. Unstoppable onslaught into a double decimating smash knock-up here. That's actually going to completely slow down this dive. Guwon's chunked out by the turret alone. Hoya flashing out of mana. Flandre doing a good job weak side tanking on this Sion, proving even more dividends for anyone's legend.
And AL just to get to keep pushing here with the Baron buff, and that is obviously the thing they want the most. Tarzan going to offer the protection, but at this point, everyone has a gold lead. Hoya is the only one who's not completely blown out in terms of their individual lane matchup. This game is going from bad to worse, and we talk about the NIP scaling. So much of that relies on them being able to walk into AL, and we highlighted that they're going to have a bit of an issue doing that if they don't have the gold lead. The only thing you couldn't do this game was really get yourself into a spot where you weren't able to 5v5. Unfortunately for NIP, just doesn't look like luck is going to be on their side in that regard because AL are really pushing the tempo of this game and could be looking to end pretty soon.
And they're settling into that superior macro style that we've seen them use leads with before. You saw Flandre, play the weak side very well. Tarzan is ever roaming on the map here. But I just love these moves, right? They see NIP like maybe trying to weasel some gold back. Like, oh yeah, I get this turret tier 1 bounty on the bot side. What do AL do? They full overload top side. They get a tier 2 in. You best believe, even before Karen maybe gets this base off, that they're going to slam into the NIP base as a 5.
Yeah, they are looking to try to end the game now. We'll see if NIP can hold. For now, it looks like it's going to be okay. No more Baron. That is definitely a plus. That means AL are going to have to disengage on this end game push. We'll see if NIP end up overextending. We've seen plenty of times teams back off only to immediately kind of throw a lot of that advantage away. But for now, AL are going to say, hey, we're fine. We've got so much pressure across the map. If we back right now, potentially try and death push somebody, we're going to be just fine to win the game in 5 minutes.
We did see, you know, with the split map plays from Hoya one side, AL as a triplet on the bot side, Tarzan uses that window to take the second Ocean Soul of the game, Ocean Drake of the game, right? So now the Soul Wincon is even up 2 apiece. Oh, I see a deep TP flank. Hoya, these haven't worked out so far this game, and I think Shanks does the right dash to get away. Guwon's going to have to throw down a pretty killer pillar. It does grab both. Pulling down, he dashes back towards Tarzan, and that's going to snuff out the push here for NIP. They are now on the back foot as Tarzan is hunting for one hell of a supreme display of talent. I thought he was going to dash there and try and throw them all into the wall, but no. Tarzan will hold up. AL are going to use the inside track on mid lane and maybe try and crack the Ninjas and Pyjamas' base.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to just say, hey, whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter that you're trying to kill us, we're just going to take your base, that's a good trade for AL. Definitely gold advantageous as they basically get a free tower in the mid lane off of that play. I understand what NIP were looking for, but they just can't find the angle. Hoya is once again trying to find a flank, and Kael might be the target.
Oh my god, he found the Emilio. Heal burn. Good, nice little kickball, though, to get Hoya off of the Enchantress support. Shockwave is going to find its mark onto Hope here, but where's the rest of the damage? Because, oh my god, Shanks is just deleting Assum. 25% HP. Hoya getting engaged on by Flandre. Shanks sending the whole Shuriman army at the rest of Ninjas in Pyjamas. And basically all of them have to head back to the fountain and succeed an inhibitor coming with more on top.
Yeah, it's not just going to be one, it's going to be both of the inhibitors that are still standing on the bottom side of the map. NIP are going to fight for this one, but this is very dangerous.
They just don't have reliable ultimates. There's the needlework. There's no shockwave. Subjugate. What does that do? Awesome transcending. How does that get you onto a primary target? The answer is it doesn't. NIP are pushed even further back as a TP comes through for Shanks. So we have 5 members on each side. NIP trying to muscle some sort of fight. Shanks is going to whiff the Emperor's Divide there, forcing the Breath of Light out of Melio. Hoya uses the mist well to not get caught by that ultimate. So now AL are out of engaged tools, and I think that just means everybody walks away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of whiffed ultimates. You might have been able to end the game there, but really at the end of the day, it's not too big of a deal. There's really no way for NIP to feel comfortable on the map right now, and you've got Baron in 15 seconds that likely you're just going to be able to reset and walk towards. Feel very comfortable in this close quarters situation around this Baron to be able to take it for free. As much as NIP probably want to get some vision onto that objective, they're going to be pretty prioritized with their own base at the current moment. So it might just be delaying the inevitable, but at least NIP are able to survive for a couple of more minutes.
AL have done a really good job respecting the few sort of catch gotcha tools that NIP really have, right? It's the pillar, it's the shockwave. And I think they've done a pretty good job waiting for either of those abilities to come out before AL feel confident stepping up, right? And that's what's allowed them to really siege well onto the base. There's, you know, mid lane in supers coming down. Bot lane inhibitor is exposed, and now they can set up shop, trying to get this Baron, and Guwon walks face first into Flandre, decimating smash, and 2 damage dealers behind you. Guwon's gone, and that means Baron is a freebie for the Pandas.
I mean, they get Dragon? Is that something, Slayer? Are we trading it for anything here?
Prize?
Yeah, I think
like
Constellation
in 10th place in a race.
Right, it doesn't necessarily make it feel all that much better. Baron's going to go down, and they're going to push onto the top side. They're just going to try to end the game while they're taking Dragon. And NIP are going to make their way back, but it might even be too late here.
Guwon is still about 15 seconds out. And if you think this comp doesn't work well with even their Trundle behind, good luck having any sort of front line without Guwon up. Baron, triple grubs, a whole host of problems in the NIP base. Another inhibitor is going to drop here. AL now with Guwon respawn are going to, you know, feel them out, see where the engage looks. There's a pillar onto Shanks, but no follow-up at that point. Hope's trying to swing on with Tarzan to bring the triple push in. Guwon's looking for the shockwave, but Shanks and Kael both flash in the nick of time. Guwon's eating a full culling for a full meal as Hope looks to step up further with a dash. Flandre's unstoppable onslaught doesn't really find the mark thanks to Hoya's miss, but now AL and Tarzan are onto these Nexus turrets. There's no more space for NIP to try and back in cautiously with safety. They've got to start throwing hands or this series is over. No turrets up, no support left up as Zhuo has to flash over the Nexus. Tarzan's going to flip Guwon into his own inhibitor, find that first kill. Hoya with the needlework, tries to flash after Hope, but he's got his Melio in his pocket. He will get out to safety. There will be the death of Shanks, but he will trade his life for AL to find the game win, for AL to find the series win that they've desperately been looking for. AL a couple more swings of the hammer from Sion away from their first big clutch sweep after going under 500. AL are back to 3-3.
Boy, did they need this. I mean, really, they needed to show up here today and not just win the series, but be better than Ninjas in Pyjamas, and that's exactly what they were here today. They were better than Ninjas in Pyjamas. Their early game was fantastic. They take advantage of a bad invade in game 1 and snowball that out of control, and then they just outplay NIP here in game number 2 to get a big lead and never look back. What a series from an AL team that really needed to showcase this exact thing here today.
Kman, we mentioned it a couple times during the game itself. This felt like shades of AL Split 1. Shades of AL a lot of 2025, especially against opponents that, albeit NIP's fast start was nice, but they should be perceived as weaker opponents. This is how AL dealt with a lot of those teams of past.
We got to see the macro version of AL. It had been so long since we felt comfortable seeing that. Kael was really greedy and aggressive around the map. That's what I want to see. I want to see him linking up with Tarzan. Speaking of Tarzan, what a series from Tarzan here, the reigning MVP of split number 1. Has not had a great start to split number 2. A lot of that's going to be erased if he continues to play like that throughout the rest of split number 2. So really awesome stuff for him so far in this series. I want to give Shanks a lot of credit as well. Again, I hate that he picked Azir into Orianna. I still think that that's just one of those matchups that you have to outplay, but boy did he outplay it. He might have set himself up into a spot where it was going to be more difficult, and he absolutely said, who cares if it's more difficult? I'm that much better than Care anyways.
And on top of that, because it's such a commanding team-winning game too, Hope and Kael slammed the Lucian Melio 2v2 lane that they need to get ahead early on. They do just that, and you know, I want to give props to Hope, especially for that first Baron fight, because it takes a lot of gumption to try and keep an entire team off of the Baron pit. That's usually reserved for like a tank or somebody that can really fall back. You rarely see a Lucian saying, all right, there's 4 people running at me. I'm just going to do some damage and dash around. Hope was able to do that. So you positive praise towards Shanks, towards Tarzan, like you mentioned, but I think Hope deserves a little bit of praise back after this game 2 in particular.
Yeah, I mean, the game 2 was perfect from him. I mean, you can't really ask for much more out of the Lucian in terms of getting a big lead in the early game, using it to really space himself out well in the mid to late game, and not really making any huge positioning mistakes. Every single time that Hope got caught, it was to the benefit of AL, who ended up being able to capitalize more on the re-engage than NIP were able to on being able to take down Hope in those fights. I also want to give him praise for game number 1. We obviously, are going to be a little bit more critical of the way he played the laning phase because he was down so much. He hit so many arrows in game number 1 that really ended up changing that game, and he was huge in that final team fight. He ends up picking up a triple kill and really starting to take over the game despite the bad start. Hope was such a critical piece for this team in split 1. People forget because he's had such a bad split 2. He was one of the best AD carries in the league at the beginning of the year, and if he can get back into that spot, if he can start to play a little bit more efficiently, like just get that confidence back. I mean, this team becomes entirely different if they have a bot lane they can rely on.
Yeah, I mean, there were points towards the end of split 1, like if you made 3 all-pro teams for Group Ascend, there were points where I felt like Hope was right in the same category with Gala and Viper. They weren't Elk level. Elk was his own beast that split, right? But he was playing right in the same ranks as Gala and Viper to help AL get that number 1 seed overall. You could definitely question what you want to get out of Hope at the big competitions. If AL make internationals, can he perform in the big best of 5 playoff series? But we are pretty used to him playing up par with the best marksman during the regular split. So AL getting him back to that level is really important if they're going to be able to come back through the standings, which I heard we now have updated. So let's take a look at how much murkier Group Ascend has gotten Kman now that we have this result from AL. A lot of people bunched up in that meaty middle of the sandwich known as Group Ascend.
Man, it really is anyone's game, isn't it? In Group Ascent right now, obviously. It does feel like Top Esports and Bilibili are the two teams to beat in the LPL at the current moment, but NIP, IG, AL, even Weibo, who started to kind of find their form, all of these teams are fighting it out right now for some of those upper spots. And certainly we've seen before, being like the number 1 or number 2 seed going into playoffs and looking like a favorite, that means nothing in the playoffs in the LPL. Anybody can win a playoff series. With the way that these teams are playing right now, I'm just hopeful that we continue to see the growth and the development, because it does feel like we're in for a very fun split number 2 for a region that's already showcased itself to be a big contender, if not a favorite internationally.
You know who didn't have any fun, though, this series? Mr. Guwon here. He does about 17k damage across 2 games by this point. So, hey, listen, a lot of us casters throw around the term gatekeeper as like for roll-to-roll comparisons for people trying to come up, right? I wouldn't say Tarzan is necessarily a gatekeeper, but he's definitely like, oh, how good is this jungler actually going to do in the LPL? How he does against Tarzan is, for me, is the ultimate litmus test. You could say Tien right now, the way he's playing as well. Guwon did not pass that test, and hopefully he learned a lot from this matchup against one of the great junglers of the entire world.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that they kind of saw him as a weak link, AL did, not only in terms of the way they attacked him in the early game, because obviously the invades and generally the pressure put on by Tarzan was massive in this series, but this draft as well. I mean, there were, 5 or 6 junglers banned out in this game. Like, they really were saying, hey, we can dig into our bag. Tarzan can play any champion that we need him to play. He can pop off on the Kiana. I'm sure he had other things in the bag if he really needed to as well. They were like, if we take a lot of these engagers away from Guwon, no Nocturne, no Vi, no, easy way to get into these fights, you're not going to have nearly as easy of a time being able to play the way that you like to play, because Guwon has been the initiator, the facilitator for this team. And we saw on the Trundle, he was trying to make those plays happen, flashing in with the Ori ball on top of him. But as this Trundle, if you are having to run into the enemy comp and you're just playing from behind, you're going to get bursted down. And quite frankly, he was really far behind in both games. We definitely saw a pretty big jungle gap in this one in favor of AL.
Kman, I just had a eureka moment that I'm curious to see if more LPL teams try and punish. NIP, the one problem with their team chemistry, like these 5 members, I don't know who reliably can play Engage throughout series except Guwon. Like, across the board. It's not Zhuo. He's a big enchanter player right now with the meta. You talk about how Hoya is like the Varus top counter pick guy. He's not going to play a lot of Engagers. We'll see if some other LPL teams find a way to exploit that.
Maybe we can pull out some of the crazy stuff we saw in the LCK with like Kalista Soraka, and then we can just make that work and just throw the Battle Raka right into the enemy team. That gives you your second form of Engage, and all of a sudden things are... Exactly. I think realistically, like, Guwon either gets one of those engagers or they have a lot more of a difficult time. We saw in game number 1 as well, Kara is also a threat to be like a big engage threat. The problem is that, like, there are very few champions that he can reliably take if you have carries in the jungle. Like, with Trundle in particular, I mean, you can't pass over Orianna. And Orianna can, I guess, be follow-up engage or maybe an engage threat if you want to talk about the Shockwave. But the reality is, like, Guwon just doesn't really have the bag right now to really be able to consistently take advantage of other junglers in the LPL. When he gets the things he's comfortable on, he looks good, but almost all of his losses this split are on champions that don't have reasonable ways to point and click, and that could be a bit of a concern for NIP moving forward.
Without a doubt, Kman. We'll see how NIP rebound from this stumble, because as we outlined before the series got underway, they have a pretty tough schedule ahead. Let's take a look, though, at the broader LPL schedule as we wrap up our show very quickly and see what we have left in store. Just had AL and IP finish off there on the Wednesday slot here. Kman, anything stick out to you? I don't know if you're on any of the rest of the week's casts. I mean, you could shout out any of those if you are.
I am not this week. I will be on next week, but this is my only cast here of week number 4. Still, some really interesting matchups. I know, well, I'll get to watch them. I'll be in chat. I'll be excited to see them. I think the one for me that I'm super excited to see, and this might be a little bit of a curveball for some people, JDG and IG to me is series of the week.
Hey,
this is
mine.
So, hey, and maybe that's why. Maybe that's why, Slayer. I just am so excited to see you cast, but I really do think that this series determines a ton. I think both of these teams could go to MSI, very realistically. IG are kind of in a down point in terms of the vibes right now, but let's look at IG's last week. I mean, that was kind of the week of death. They had BLG, they had top esports. I mean, the upset to Weibo is not ideal, but getting back on the horse with a win over JDG could be massive in proving that they still are a top-tier team, and JDG are kind of in a similar position. They need to start pushing right now, because this is a team that, while they've underperformed before, like, they're the defending runner-ups. And if they want to try and repeat that position, this is a win they must get.
I'm glad you mentioned that series, not just because I'm casting Kman, but because of the parallels JDG IG has to what we just saw from AL and NIP. I think AL and JDG are in a similar spot coming into their series, obviously with ours already over. And NIP and IG are in a kind of similar spot with how much are we willing to bet on the early success of these teams. So that's a matchup to watch for. We have a ton of Group Nirvana action. Remarkably, remember, 2 of our teams will finish competitive play in 2026 out of Group Nirvana by the end of that split. So every one of these games is extra high pressurized, more like a playoff atmosphere. That, though, will wrap up our Wednesday slot here. No matter, depending on what time of day it is for you. I guess for most people, we are finally over towards Wednesday.
You can see the sun coming in for me.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You've got your whole day ahead of you. I'm about to end my very long day once we get out of here. But before we end an LPL English broadcast, we have some very important thank yous to throw out to some very important people. So I would like to say thank you very much to our elite coffee supporters, that being Aaron Soup and Mong. Their pledged financial contributions help level up the broadcast and give back to the cast and crew that strive to give you an LPL English project every single darn day. So shout out to you two superstars, our super coffee elite supporters there. Kman, though, that will end another Slayman Rocks cast here. Anyone's Legend, get the 2-0 over Ninjas in Pyjamas to make Group Ascend look a lot more murky in the middle. And it's only going to get hotter from here as we trend further and further closer to the Split 2 playoffs. But for now, we bid you